Hello, it's Stuart, the unrepentant atheist, and I noticed this debate's just gone up 2 days ago, and I think that Matt has debated Stuart Knechtle, don't know if that's a pronunciation, in the past, but I think that was on the existence of God. I may have even covered it, but there's a new one here where they're debating the question, is Christianity rational? So it's quite a long debate. I've sort of put together some clips which I'm going to, comment on. And so basically Stuart went first and he laid out his case, but I'm going to come in with Matt because Matt is the one that addresses the question, what does it mean to be rational, that something is rational. So we're just going to have a quick listen to what he's got to say about that, and then we're going to get back to what Stuart says. So let's just have a listen to what Matt says about that.
Irrational to claim that Mario can violate the rules of the game. Or if you prefer, Dungeons and Dragons has a magic system and a set of rules that govern that aspect of the game. And as long as an act...
Yeah, so he's just saying here that the internal consistency of something, in other words, Christianity may well be internally consistent, but that doesn't make it true, and it doesn't mean that it's rational to accept it. So he's looking at, Dungeons and Dragons and that type of thing, and they're internally consistent, etc., but they're not rational, or they've got things in them which don't comport with what we know about reality.
Within the game is consistent with those rules, it's rational. That type of rationality does us no good. Internal consistency isn't relevant to what we're talking about today. In order for something to be rational, it needs to be consistent with the facts of reality.
Okay, so I'm going to stop it there and I'm going to move on. So that's fairly clear, and I would agree with that. If something is rational, it has to be consistent with the facts that we know, obviously not to certainty, but which comport with reality. So let's move on and listen to some of Stuart's presentation. Okay, so Stuart, as part of his case, talks about Jesus and what a different character he was to appear in the ancient world at this particular time. And I just want to pick up on something that he says. He's talking about the superlative qualities that Jesus has got, the wisdom, the control that he's got, and various other things. And the way that he puts emphasis on helping the poor, forgiveness, etc., etc. So let's just listen. There's a bit here which I would take issue with him.
Crazy stuff in a culture that was all power driven and all about violence and oppressing people who are lower down the rung on the socioeconomic or ethnic ladder. And yet he comes in and says, turn the other cheek, forgive 70 times 7, look out for the oppressed, and look out for the poor and marginalized. And when you look deeply into his character, it's incredible how he combines things. He has these virtues within his character that, let's just say, are incompatible for most of us. He doesn't have these crazy temperaments. We can flare up. I have a temperament at times to tremendously get angry on the basketball court, for example. But
well, what I would say about that is that there is at least one example in the New Testament, in the Gospels, of Jesus flaring up, and it surprises me that he made that statement, because we know that when Jesus went to he went into the temple where there were transactions taking place, money transactions, and it's in Matthew, I believe, he overturned the tables, and which actually, when you think about it, try to visualize that, going in and turning upside down all the tables of the traders. If that's not flaring up and losing control, I don't know what is. And he said, this my Father's house is supposed to be a place of prayer. You've turned it into a den of thieves. It's really quite strong language. It sounds to me like somebody who's got a temper. Now, I don't think that to me, a wise man is not somebody who's completely 100% in control all the time. You can get angry about things and still be wise. You can feel passionate about things, and obviously in this case Jesus felt passionate and he was angry that this happened. And so I think Stuart's got the wrong idea about Jesus. I don't think he doesn't understand his own Messiah. What kind of Christian is he? I think that I don't really think this guy understands Jesus at all. Okay, so let's listen to Stuart's next comment, and we'll see what he says.
It convicts every culture I like that. I think that makes sense with God. The reliability of the Gospels, I think, are pretty obvious. You got the manuscripts and the dates.
Well, if the reliability of the Gospels was so obvious, we wouldn't be sitting here having these debates. The whole world would be Christian if it was so obvious that the Gospel's reliable. And I assume that, well, correct me if I'm wrong, I made a false assumption, but when Stuart says reliability of the Gospels, what he is saying is that what is recorded in the Gospels actually happened. What else could he mean? Now, let's just go on with it.
5,800 manuscripts. You get the dates within 15 years, probably even closer to the events themselves.
Okay, so now he's making a claim that it's 15 years after the events, or even closer. He's saying even closer. I don't know of any New Testament scholarship which says that Mark was written within 15 years of the death of Jesus. I think it's longer than that. But supposing it is just 5 years, or supposing it was even written just literally 2 weeks after the not after the resurrection, but after the crucifixion of Jesus, it doesn't mean that what's recorded in those Gospels is actually true. So how he could claim reliability, saying, oh, the reliability of the Gospels is so obvious, it just beggars belief, because he's not able to establish the truth of any of those fantastical claims which are recorded in the Gospels. And so on to the resurrection. So let's hear what Stuart's got to say about the resurrection.
Like Islam. That's why it's bogus to think that Constantine 325 or around then would have had some power to change things. He didn't. It was a persecuted minority from the get-go. And then you got the resurrection. Evidence, I would take a cumulative case, typically. 1, witnesses and how they reported. 2, skeptics that converted. 3, expectation of the gospel, the way it was presented and the way it was received. 4, Jewish background and understanding of what they were expecting. 5, voluntary persecution and suffering. 6, immediate.
Oh, these have been debunked time and time again. I mean, I was only just talking, I think I did a video 2 days ago about somebody who phoned Matt and said that his proof for the resurrection was that there were so many martyrs prepared to die for their beliefs. This is all very unreasonable. Very, very. I mean, he talks about, when somebody says, I've got a cumulative case, particularly when we're talking about claims which defy the natural order, in other words, miracles, people coming back from the dead, they always talk about a cumulative case. In other words, all these weak pieces of evidence, you add them all up and somehow they aggregate to something that is really powerful and convincing, and they just don't.
Proclamation, 7, empty tomb. 8, the use of women as eyewitnesses.
This is something that is always referred to. I've been doing a bit of reading on this thing that women were not, counted as reliable, and it's actually much more complex. It's not true that women were just, simply regarded as completely unreliable witnesses. And if you actually read the Gospels and you look at who those women are, it's actually quite significant. So this is something that they come to time and time again. I don't consider it to be impressive evidence for the reliability of the resurrection account. But I'm going to move on to the next point. Okay, here we go.
Stay quiet. It's pretty impressive. Then you got all kinds of external evidence. You talk about Lucian, Suetonius, Tacitus, plenty outside of the Bible.
Oh, I don't believe it. Okay. So Tacitus, Pliny the Younger, this is the mainstay of the Christian case. So the thing about Tacitus is, and any other historians, Josephus, etc., they were talking about and they were reporting that there were Christians and this is what they believed. That in no way validates that there's any truth behind those actual beliefs. Okay, so that can be safely dismissed. Okay, so we're now moving into the discussion phase, and I'm not going to do too much because it wasn't really that productive, but I've just picked out 1 or 2 for us to have a look at.
You're debating.
We don't talk about anything like that. It's just game over, that simple. So why don't we just leave it at that? Because
I'm not the one who's here making a case that I can't make and then saying that someone's being a little boy. Grow up, Stuart.
If you don't find any of what I gave attractive, I haven't heard you say one thing in all of our debates, anything attractive about the Christian faith. Not one. And we spent hours together. Not one. If you're not going to grant a single thing attractive about the Christian worldview,
Stuart,
you will never be convinced.
Correct. But Stuart, this debate isn't, is there something attractive within Christianity? If that was the debate proposed, I would have just said yes and ended it.
Yeah, this is the weird thing. I remember William Lane Craig. What was he on? Who was he debating? No, he wasn't debating anybody. One of his followers called in and said that he was having doubts in his faith, and should we not higher the bar, make the bar much higher because it's such an important belief? And William Lane Craig said that in fact you don't make the bar higher, you make it lower. And why? Because it's so attractive and it's so valuable. And he said that what's attractive about Christianity is that you can have this personal relationship with God. God loves Bill Craig, and he's got redemption, and he's got the possibility of eternal life. It's so attractive, and it also satisfies all the issues that we've got in philosophy. We've got foundationalism. We've got a foundation for everything. Your worldview is completely watertight and taken care of, plus everything else which is attractive. And for that reason, not to make the bar high to make sure that what you believe is true, but because it's so attractive, to reduce your criteria for belief, to get the bar down as low as possible so you can get over it. And that's what Stuart is saying here, and that's why he's criticizing Matt, because Matt's not interested in how attractive Christianity is, or whether there's anything attractive in Christianity, because it doesn't really say anything about how rational it is.
Debate was, is Christianity rational? And once again, you have avoided that subject and deflected to something else. A personal attack on me and what I have or haven't done, and then an irrelevant thing about, do you find anything in Christianity appealing? Yeah.
Yeah, this is another thing. Rather than making a case properly for whether it's rational whether Christianity is rational, he did spend a lot of time on, straw manning humanists, and it's either Christianity or it's hedonism, and he didn't want hedonism, so he took Christianity, etc., etc. It was a very unsatisfying discussion, I found. So what else have we got? Right, we'll have one more clip and then that's it. So I've got one more clip. We'll have a listen to that, and then we'll call it a day on this debate.
And did Jesus get up? No. What I said is, present the evidence that supports your hypothesis, except you don't have a hypothesis because hypotheses need to be testable. So present.
I suppose the problem is that Stuart believes that in his opening statement he presented evidence that Christianity is rational by simply going through all the normal points, reliability of the Gospels, the resurrection as a historical fact, deaths of the martyrs, skeptics converted, 1,500 manuscripts, etc., etc. He feels that he would feel that he's already presented sufficient evidence, and of course Matt has rejected all of that.
Present the evidence that supports your proposition that there is in fact a God at the root of this.
And I gave you my 4 points. You didn't like them, and so you took me on this merry-go-round of
I
different
took you
issues.
on a merry-go-round. I think if we rewind, you'll find that I sat here quietly and patiently while you delivered sermons and deflected. I didn't take anybody on a merry-go-round. I still have tons of notes that I didn't even get to because even a simple question of is it justice or vengeance led you into a 3 or 4 minute sermon so that I didn't get to the other points.
This may be an opportunity to jump into the Q&A.
Yeah, let's go to questions.
Okay, well, Stuart's sitting there and he's just laughing his head off, and I wonder whether really he's taking this seriously at all, or whether, I don't know, whether he's playing some kind of a joke on Matt. I've got no idea, but a very unsatisfactory debate. I don't really think that Stuart quite understood the title the meaning of the title is Christianity Rational. He did not, I didn't feel that he really addressed that properly. He was really trying to establish whether Christianity is true rather than it being rational. I found that very disappointing, because I hoped that they would get into the nitty-gritty of what does it mean to be rational, and then in what way could you claim that Christianity is rational. And he just used the debate for a completely different purpose, which is to prove that Christianity is true. So, you know, complete fail. And I've tried to keep this video down in the number of minutes, so I hope that you've taken something from it. And I wouldn't really recommend that you sit for 1.5 hours and watch this, but leave some comments. I'd be delighted to get some feedback on my video. And thanks for watching. I'll be back again soon. Bye for now.